Welcome to the Intentional Man Podcast, a podcast that inspires and equips men to lead lives of intentionality and grow to their full potential. I'm your host, Jonathan McGinley, a life coach that helps men just like you create the life that you want and live a story of significance through my coaching and tools on intentionality. Thanks for joining, and welcome to the show. All right, welcome back to the show. I am so excited to be here with you today, and I'm honestly just pumped for this episode because I got my good friend, Jeffery Jewett with me today. Jeff, how are you doing?
Hey, Jonathan. So good to be here with you, man. It's really a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Jeff and our paths crossed about a year ago. We both are Maxwell certified coaches, speakers, trainers, and we're kind of in a mentorship program through the Maxwell team, and just got put in a random accountability group. And it was supposed to be three of us. The other guy never showed up. I think he came for the first meeting maybe. And then after that, I don't think he ever came back. So then me and Jeff had just been meeting on a weekly basis, kind of just holding each other accountable to some of the things that we were doing and pursuing. And it's just been a pleasure to get to know you, man. And just can't express my gratitude to you enough for being there for me through the highs, through the lows, and on a weekly basis. And I know I'm better because of meeting with you consistently, better to know you and the man that you are. So Jeff, he also launched a built a business that helps men who are in transition. So in tough times, whether they were previously incarcerated or struggling with addiction, and he helps provide jobs for them to do mattress recycling. But way above that, it's in order to invest in their lives and to really help them get back on their feet. And so, man, just so much respect for you. So thanks for being here, brother.
You're too kind. No, thanks so much for that. And yeah, it's been such a pleasure getting to know you and just journeying with you on a weekly basis, just pushing
Absolutely.
each other and just seeing what's next. So
yeah,
I love what you're doing with Intentional Man. So again, so good to be with you. And I think part of what brought us together this past year is man, the misery of our Broncos. But hey, there's a brighter day. brighter day, and love.
That's definitely true.
Definitely share our love for sports as well, for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Well, recently me and Jeff were talking, and he actually got to share his story with me, which I had never really heard over the time that we've known each other, and it was just incredibly powerful, impacting. And it's just cool to see the man that you are now and the impact that you're having, but then to learn kind of everything that you've gone through in the past and how you've been shaped to be who you are today was just incredibly insightful. So I wanted him to come on, and we're just going to kind of dive into some of that story. It's a story of redemption and overcoming setbacks, and just to see who you are now is encouraging. So buckle up. It's going to be a good one. Jeff, let's just start back from the beginning, man. So let's take it back to the kind of high school days, early life. And that season, what did you think it meant to be a man? And kind of what was your model of masculinity at that point in time?
Absolutely. So I grew up in Alaska, born and raised, and just from an early age, just wanted to be a leader. Just wanted to win. Honestly, like I was competitive growing up. I remember winning the Arco Jesse Owens games, the 50-meter dash. When I was, I don't know, must have been 12, and just immediately, just loved running, loved to compete, and grew up playing baseball and basketball. Really enjoyed that, and really kind of having that shaped from an early age of kind of to be a man is to be able to come through. It's to perform. It's to do great things, to do something significant, and that was really shaped from an early age. I was our freshman class president, homecoming prince. That's just kind of how I went into high school with kind of charging towards leadership and significance, and certainly,
Hmm.
um, you know, striving to be that as a man.
Yeah, for sure. So you felt like significance to you at the time. I like that you use that word because that's something we talk about on the show a lot. For you at the time, that meant achievement, that meant success, that meant, and especially in sports, is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So where do you think that kind of came from? That pressure, or why did you start feeling that that was the key to success or validation or significance?
Yeah, I of course, some childhood heroes, John Elway, Chipper Jones, you know, just grew up just loving sports and watching sports, and of course
Hmm.
having those dreams one day as you get older. But really my dad, he was a great baseball player, and he golfed as well, and I think growing up, our dads are our heroes, and really in so many ways, my dad still is, and just with his own story of overcoming, and and everything that he persevered through, but certainly, yeah, that I wouldn't say pressure from him, but it was probably more self-imposed of,
Hmm.
hey, my dad did this. I want to
Yeah.
I want to follow in his footsteps. I want to make him proud.
For sure. Yeah. So, take us back to those moments in high school. Did you have times where it was very up and down because sometimes you would achieve and you would hit what you wanted and other times you wouldn't? Like, how did you deal with failure then at that point in time if you were putting so much stock in kind of achieving through, athletics?
Yeah, no, that's great. I remember, wanting to play high school baseball, and and trying out for that team, and one of the final positions, for the team, and did not make the team, and I was devastated. I really was, and because I like that's what I wanted to do, and again, feeling like my dad placed such a high value on that. But looking back, it was more me just wanting to earn that praise,
Hmm.
and just hear that my dad's proud of me. I think it was just so much more imposed than that. But looking back, like, I don't think many people were surprised that I didn't make that team. And what I mean is, I didn't put in the time to practice like I needed to. I wasn't on all the travel ball teams in years leading up to high school. A lot of times I'd be working with my dad in the summertime. He was a marine biologist, and we'd be, out in the ocean in Prince William Sound, working for a month at a time, and just amazing experiences in the outdoors, doing that. But I wasn't putting in the time and practice to
Hmm.
to have that dream with the level of importance that I placed on it, and so much of my identity, I feel like, wrapped in that success and
Hmm.
achievement.
Yes.
The time I was putting in for practice and just becoming a person that, hey, ate, breathed, and slept baseball, that wasn't what I had done, leading
Hmm.
to that disappointment of not making the team.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, which is, I'm glad you mentioned identity because I felt the same thing in high school. I was a basketball player, and put so much stock into that, and honestly didn't realize how much of my identity was in that until I played in college and was on the bench, my freshman year and not getting much playing time. And all of a sudden I was like, I didn't know what to do when I wasn't like the best player on the team. And so it's easy to feel that when and it's hard to recognize sometimes of like, oh my gosh, this is where I'm putting so much identity. What was kind of the point for you where you realized that you were putting so much identity in this, that you were putting so much stock in achieving, that you felt these pressures from your dad? either directly or indirectly. But when was kind of that moment for you where your eyes were open to the fact that you were putting all your validation in terms of athletic success?
Yeah, I think probably, and the same, the same with basketball. Played for a few years, but ultimately just just wasn't a level that I think in my childhood aspired towards and dreamed of. But again, the dream, or the training and the discipline didn't match with the dream. And so
Yeah.
I think when that failure happened, that end result of not going to the level you want to go, not being on that team, that's when I realized probably the level of identity that I placed in being able to perform and achieve in sports, and have that be a part of who I was. Like that's the identity I wanted, in terms of athletics for
For
myself,
sure.
for sure. So I think feeling that disappointment, that letdown, and then shifting to, okay, like, what am I going to do now? What am I going to fill that with?
Right.
Um, I think that's when I certainly realized.
Yeah, for sure. Which is a good point that you bring up. A lot of times when identity is taken away through a failure or through something else, we look to fill that gap with other things.
Hmm.
And I know, like we've mentioned this word validation a couple times today, but I think that's one thing as men we're always searching for. And I think it's kind of a natural thing. We want to be validated that we're a man. We want to be validated that we're worth something, that we're good at something. And so when the thing that we put so much stock in is taken from us, where that's where some validation is coming from, then all of a sudden we're in this place where we're looking for it in all these other areas. Where did you turn for validation, for comfort, for success, when some of these things were going on, when you were kind of floundering around between, the not quite as much success on the athletic field as you wanted,
Hmm.
pressures with your dad? Where did you turn then for validation?
Yeah, I felt, I remember feeling pretty alone after, you know not making these teams. I think we all are just hardwired to belong, to crave
Mm-hmm.
belonging. And I remember, um, you know ultimately shifted to, sophomore year. I remember there was a drastic turn of kind of, again, this leadership trajectory I was on coming into high school, um, achievement, student government, and sophomore year, just drank for the first time. And I remember, yeah, just feeling like, well, geez, you know and then so much of this is hindsight ration. I think in real time we don't we don't realize it, don't have this self-awareness to say, oh geez, what am I doing here? But
Mm-hmm.
begin to party, and just I think find belonging, and find, that I was esteemed in that, and kind of these wild stories, and just fun with buddies, and so partying began to take hold. And I think again, looking back, um, it was numbing some of that pain of
Yeah. Yeah.
again, not accomplishing some of these things, athletic wise, that I wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you're kind of jumping into the party scene, finding more validation there. Where did that ultimately kind of lead you to, um, throughout high school? Where did that
Yeah.
kind of lead you to? You started sophomore year, junior year, senior year. Was that kind of something that continued on through the rest of your high school years?
It it did. It ebbed and flowed, but I would say it definitely just continued to ramp up. I think when we develop bad habits, and maybe surrounding ourselves with some people that aren't kind of having the same goals, or encouraging us forward, spurring us on, then it's easy to just kind of get caught in these cycles. I was still running track at the time. I was still excelling in that. Ultimately, I was able to be a state champion, with our relay teams and the 4x1, 4x2. So I had some great experiences in track and field, and just love those times. But yeah, the partying was still there throughout high school, and I think it really inhibited kind of the heights that I could have reached in really all areas. Looking back, a huge moment was senior year. Beginning of my senior year, I would always be the one to drive when we would go out, and because of course I thought I drove great, and not true. And driving home one night with some buddies, got pulled over and got a DUI, and I remember, certainly something I'm not proud of at all, and learned so much since then. But I remember, getting bailed out of jail and going home that morning, and my dad came in my room that morning, and he said, "Hey, son, how was last night?" And he genuinely had no idea what had gone on. And I said, "Not good." I said, I got a DUI. And he's like, "Well, that's going to ruin your senior year." And he walked out. And man, that was such a key moment for a young man just trying to navigate life, and just some really poor decisions, a really, really poor road that I was going down. And to have my dad in that moment, I fully acknowledge, I think he didn't know what to say. I think he was probably so mad, so sad, so many things. I think flashbacks perhaps of his own personal story with his father, and just some tragedy there. But what I needed in that moment was probably a whooping. It's probably really what I needed. Or I needed the biggest hug I've ever received, and probably needed both. Son, I've got you. Like, I see you on the path, and this isn't you. Like, there's something way better for you, and we've got to get to work. And that's what I needed in that moment. Yet it was absolutely my doing, my decision, my poor choice. But that moment of him just walking out of the room with that statement stung to the core, and really, I really walked with quite a bit of shame for some years after that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. I was going to ask, kind of from that moment, obviously that's a pretty pivotal moment, and a lot of pain and emotions in that moment. Where did that kind of lead you from there? What were the feelings going forward from there? Was there kind of, any eye-opening experience where you kind of went a different direction, or was it harder to kind of regain your footing because of that response? Where did that lead to?
Yeah, it was, that year was rough. Senior year, so much excitement, so many things going on with friends and activities and sports and everything. And, I just remember, a lot of weekends at home. I was grounded for a while, and just kind of, I think the best way I could describe it, I just kind of began to get a little bit numb, of I think living with that disappointment of again my dad, in that moment, um, we never really addressed it again. And again, there was a lot of, you know, poor decisions coming home late leading up to that moment, the beginning of my senior year. So it wasn't like this came out of nowhere, but this was the first kind of big incident.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so I think yeah, I just began to walk with less confidence. I think I began to live a smaller story, began to shrink down
Mm.
into what I would risk. Um, I think my goals probably got smaller. I began to not believe. I think is what began to transpire. Now I think that was the undercurrent. Um, I still was known as this fun, easygoing guy. Like that
Yeah.
was kind of
Yeah.
my MO. Like that was
Mm-hmm.
very much my identity of Jeff Jewett's fun, and he likes to he's up for whatever, um, and that's still an MO I carried kind of the rest of high school. High school ended on a high note, as I mentioned, with track and field, and just really enjoyed my high years. Honestly, overall, they
Yeah.
were they were so much fun. And then fast forward, into I had an awesome internship experience with as a Senate intern in Washington D.C. right out of high school. Again, just great leadership opportunity just to see all the dysfunction in our country firsthand, with our
Yeah.
Senate and Congress, and just love to travel. So that was just such a high note, coming out of high school. And then just I think I was really looking forward to a fresh start in
Mm-hmm.
college.
Mm-hmm.
Went to school in California, and you know was excited about running there as well. And I think as we know, like we can change up place, scenery, but yet if we haven't changed, the way we live our life, and the way we go to work, the way we practice, the way we you know have routines built in our life. If we just go at it the same way as I was, of course I'm going to get the same results.
Mm.
And walking on the track team there, I think there was still a lack of belief. There was I think some fear of failure there. Of, man, can I do this? And I don't know where that came from really, other. I think past disappointments can have a cumulative effect.
For sure.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I remember early on, like I got an injury, running track in college, and it was just this nagging injury. But what was even more than that was inhibiting me from just grabbing on to this opportunity of being able to run in college, was this underlying fear of, do I have what it takes?
Yeah.
And again, this is a question every young boy, every man asks.
For
John
sure.
Eldredge talks about it in his book, Wild at Heart. Um, you know, and we began to take this question. I took it to sports. Would that answer the question? Do I have what it takes? And then we take it to partying, or to women, or whatever. Um, and and ultimately, a series of events that just didn't end up panning out, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
running in college. And of course, we find the same crowds other places as well. And
Yeah.
the partying continued, and it was ultimately asked to leave my school. First semester of sophomore year, I was asked to leave, and they had a no drinking policy. And so yeah, it was kind of an abrupt ending to, again, what I viewed as a fresh start. But I hadn't developed any different habits
Mm.
or
Yeah.
way to go about, you know maybe challenging situations or things that may seem new or fearful, hadn't developed that courage muscle
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we have to in life to be able to push through these moments of fear and uncertainty.
For sure.
And so
Yeah.
I went back to where I knew. I went back to Alaska to enroll in college there and continue my education.
Okay. Yeah. And I think what you just brought up is a great point in that question that, John Eldredge had is, are we enough? Do we have what it takes? It's interesting hearing your story back because you had moments of athletic success, like winning the state championship that senior year.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still where you had put a lot of identity, but it still felt like that wasn't enough. Like
Mm-hmm.
hearing your story earlier, it seems like with athletic success would have come this feeling of, I've made it, I've had success, but because of the first failure and then turning to other things, it was kind of like this, I'm looking in all these different places and I'm finally getting it here, but I'm still trying to find it in other areas. And then you get this good internship, which would be, pretty prestigious. It sounds like, something that could really be validating, but you don't have the habits and the discipline and the mindset built up to answer that question. Like, am I enough? You're still searching when, sophomore year, if you would have laid it out and said, you're going to do these things, you probably would have thought that was enough. So it's interesting because a lot of times we just search for those surface level validations, but there was something going on internally that kept you looking. So I want you to finish kind of the story. So you end up going back to Alaska, still wrestling with a lot of things, had your shot at college athletics, ended up, still being in the party scene. Where did you go after that? What was kind of the moment that then kind of awakened you and shifted things from that place?
Absolutely. So I'm in Anchorage, Alaska, and saying, man, I've got to finish school here. I've got to make this happen. So, enroll there and absolutely still just walking around with disappointment. I quickly, initially a business student, ultimately land on air traffic control and loved aviation. Just wanted to, still would actually, but have my own plane someday. And I was in private pilot ground school, but just saw a path again of success in air traffic control. And, after 2 years, I could be making X amount and be able to travel with that. And it's a federal, really important job at the end of the day, keeping planes in the air and people safe. And so I began to just pour into that. And meanwhile, still partying, still, it's amazing how we can find those crowds wherever we are, and but doing good enough, like really feeling like, okay, like I've I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and mind you, so I grew up in church, a believer in Jesus, and still was through this time. As odd as it sounds, I was certainly living a life for myself. I was very selfish, wanting these, extraordinary, moments of adrenaline. It was all self-indulgence. And I remember having conversations with God, and this is super scary when we do this with God. But I remember having conversations. God, I want to be a good man. I want to have a family one day, beautiful wife, kids. But right now I'm doing my thing. And I don't know, like you would think even having that conversation with God, you'd be like, who am I kidding? Like I'm out of my mind. And I was. And so, that was where I was at. It wasn't like I had turned my back in my action, but my heart, it's like I still still believed in Jesus
Right.
and wanted him the Lord of my life, just not then. And still don't fully understand that. I think it's probably odd for some of the listeners to hear that, but that's really where I was at. And so fast forward, I have a semester left. I'm at the top of my class in air traffic control school, and about to be done before I know it. And Buddy and I went out and celebrated that first day of school that semester, and we didn't need many reasons to celebrate in those days. But
Yeah.
there we were, hitting all the places, all the people we knew. And I had to pick a buddy up from the airport that night. So I had that in the back of my mind. And, one thing led to another. And next thing I know, I'm in my truck, heading for the airport. And I rear-ended a vehicle that was at a stoplight and pushed them into the intersection. And they were pushed in the intersection. My airbag deployed, and the next thing I remember is turning back after being cuffed by the police and seeing my truck was totaled. And next thing I remember is waking up in jail. And so none of the accident I remembered except for that flash of seeing my truck totaled. I don't remember the impact, anything.
Wow.
And the scariest moment of my life to this day is reading that police report in my cell that morning, praying to God that I hadn't killed someone or seriously injured someone. And by the grace of God, they experienced whiplash, but they were not seriously hurt. And it was such instant relief and just so grateful. And my life was about to change drastically.
Yeah.
This was absolutely rock bottom. Facing some real charges at this point that I was ultimately convicted on. Assault with a deadly weapon sounds pretty bad on a job application or a background check. When my vehicle struck another in my negligence, that was the charge that I was given through my actions that I take responsibility for. And so that's what I would live with beyond that day in 2003. And it was a tremendously long road back. And so that was my rock bottom. That was when I really believed God was clearly saying, okay, Jeff, no more on your time frame or your timeline. It's on mine now.
Wow.
And honestly, I think so often, like, just how grateful I am that, man, God was by my side all those years, and he didn't forsake me. He didn't leave me. He just kept coming for me. And it took a while.
Wow. What a story. Yeah. And thanks again for sharing that. And man, wow, powerful. Just knowing, the person that you are today, and just the husband and the father and just the man that you are and who you invest in and how you spend your time. It's amazing to see who you are now. I'm just so curious then, from that moment, how did you kind of build your life back? Like, and I know you keep kind of talking habits and disciplines, and, maybe there's some of those things, but how did you go from that moment then to where you are now? Because I think this is really important. We all have these setbacks in life. We have these moments of rock bottom. We have these moments that we regret, and I think a lot of times there's two paths we can take from those, that you can even, say, forget it, blame God, blame other people, take the victim mentality, continue down that path, or you can let it define you as you kind of wake you up and push you towards a new path. And it sounds like you took that direction. So you know, how did you kind of build your life back from that moment?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was in a really, really tough spot for a while. Absolutely embracing the victim mentality, feeling
Mm-hmm.
like I just, like I was in utter shock for a while. I would honestly describe it as shock, where I can't believe I'm in this position. Like like have I've probably messed up one too many times, to where all the hopes and dreams I've ever had, I think, are squandered. Like I think I'm probably done. And and I think I believed that for a short while,
Mm-hmm.
and certainly I even had some depression. Just just every freedom that we take for granted, I feel like was taken away in that moment. And having to report to someone, and a probation officer, and just all these things that really felt like I was starting over in so many ways, and in so
Yeah.
many ways I needed to. So
Yeah.
all new friends, even though it wasn't those other friends' fault. It was my choices, but I needed to start surrounding myself with people that that were doing different things with their time, and
Yeah.
that had different goals, and that were going to hold me to a different standard. And so I found those friends, and a couple of my buddies, Mike and Jared, and began to say, okay, well, man, I'm not going to be an ATC person anymore, an air traffic control. A federal job was out; it was not an option anymore. Enrolled in psychology, ultimately got my degree in psychology, and you know, just begin to slowly get out of this really lonely time of kind of this woe is me, to, okay, like, I've got to get back in school. I've got to
Mm-hmm.
start, started playing basketball again with some friends. Um, you know, buddy of mine that was my roommate for a while during that season, huge Braves fan, and just started to kind of have some connection with people again, that was just really healthy. We
Yeah. Yeah.
desperately need people around us that are spurring us on, that we enjoy being with, and that genuinely, care about the person we are, not what we do. And so graduated, and just started being more consistent, just surrounding myself with positive people, people that shared my faith, and ultimately had this tremendous opportunity to be a guide for a raft company in Colorado, in '06. And this was really a turning point for me, of it's super hard to get a job there, because it's just so much fun, but they're known for just pouring into their people so much, and really developing and sending off leaders. And so was ending up able to secure this opportunity, and was there for a year. And I remember a pivotal moment where, um, you know when it came time to essentially be signed off to take your first clients down the river.
Yeah.
I first in my guide class to be signed off that year, and it was significant in that moment of feeling like,
Mm.
gosh, like these people believe in me,
Yeah.
and 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 I am a leader, and I'm absolutely qualified and ready for this, and I've worked for this. That was the biggest thing.
Yes.
I'd been training for
Yes.
over a month. I'd worked day in and day out, as hard as anybody there, and and they gave me that opportunity, and so that was significant, of just saying, "Hey, Jeff, we see you as a leader. you've been preparing, and you're ready. Another huge thing that summer was just met with 2 or 3 other guys weekly, and we just began to share our story. And man, that's therapeutic. Get to know yourself. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Get to know
Yeah.
yourself and your story. Because if we don't, we're just kind of floating in the wind, really.
Yeah.
And so really began to have that opportunity that summer for that. And I feel like I've been on an upward trajectory since of really just believe, like, no, like, I'm do I not still have plenty of fears daily? Without a doubt. And I can share more about that a little bit later in the show. But that was just such a over the hump moment of really feeling redemption, honestly, and
For sure.
and feeling like I was with my people again, in the
Yeah.
mountains and on the
Yeah.
river. And so yeah, it was a beautiful time in
That's
Colorado.
awesome. Yeah. Wow. There's so much to take away from everything you just shared, just kind of thinking through your story and where you went from there. The first thing that sticks out to me is it seems like you took ownership of your life. And even throughout this entire episode, you've had that language of, I take responsibility. These were my actions. Even though there were some difficulties, you take responsibility. I think that was honestly step one for you, to kind of get out of that victim mentality, that victim zone of, oh my gosh, all this is happening to me. In order to build your life back up, you had to take responsibility. You had to take ownership and say, no, this is on me, ultimately, to kind of build back. I think you did that. Then you surrounded yourself with good people, which I think is huge. Those two things there is probably what took you from that crossroads of, do I continue to be a victim and go this direction, or do I start to build my life back up? And you said, I'm going to take ownership and I'm going to surround myself with good people. And then what's cool too, just thinking about that moment in the rafting trip and they picking you first. Like, I'm just thinking how cool it is, the life that they were able to speak into you. They probably had no idea that moment would be so crucial, so critical in your life. And it's just really inspiring me to think about, like, man, my words and the belief that I can give to other people can actually change the trajectory of their life. And it's amazing to think that way, that was what you needed in that moment. And you had people who believed in you, that spoke life into you. And I know that's why you do what you do now, because you're speaking life into people, which is really exciting. So many things to kind of pull from that. We're kind of getting near the end of our time now. What, from all this entire story, from beginning to end, what are some of just like the key lessons that you've taken? And if you were talking to a young man, somebody who's going through something similar, or searching for validation in different places, like, what would be your biggest piece of advice for someone who, is in a similar situation to where you used to be?
Sure. I would say, no, if you're going through a similar time like this, it doesn't matter what your story is. Pain is pain, and that cuts deep. And just know that you're loved. Period. Like you are loved. Like I now know. My identity is rooted in Jesus, in Christ, and there's nothing I could do to make him love me more or less. And I'm a son, who's delighted in, and that's what I would say to you. You are a son that's delighted in whom God is well pleased. And I think once we believe that about our true identity, and that it's not found in all these other things that are fleeting in this world, then we can begin to say, man, I was put on this earth for greatness.
Wow.
I was put on this earth to impact people in incredible ways. And all of our stories point to that in one way or another. I would say we've got to get to know, like I said earlier, we've got to get to know ourselves. We've got to be aware of of how we've been formed and shaped and molded. We've got to be aware of our hurts, our wounds, um, and and have a space to unpack that with someone. Man, whether that's counseling or just talking with a friend, we can't live with this, you know, weight of guilt or shame or disappointment around our neck. Where that's not the life we're meant to live. And I would absolutely say it's never too late. It
Yeah.
is not too late to go after these dreams that you've always had. I believed for a moment that my dreams were over, that they were shattered, that, man, it's too late, Jeff. I can't believe you messed up again. And I believed those lies, that I was a disappointment to my dad and my family and other people I cared about, when in reality they weren't disappointed in me. They might not have known what to do in that moment, or how to speak to me or how to love me, but they weren't disappointed. We place that on ourselves,
Yeah.
and it's a lie. And so it's never too late. And you know, um, since then, I would say the biggest thing, and really what's so in the forefront for me today, is being a person of discipline, becoming a disciplined person daily.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, as I look back, really the root of all my disappointment and poor decisions. When I really get to the root of, man, I was listening to The Art of Living the other day. Matthew McConaughey had a
Yeah.
really
Mm-hmm.
cool, webinar that he put out, little mini conference, and he talks about what's your biggest strength. That your biggest strength may also be your biggest weakness. And for me, 100%. I'm a dreamer. Always have been. Always have just known, like, I'm destined for something great, something significant, and to make a large impact, during my time that I'm given on this earth. And the flip side of this dreamer is, you're not taking action. You're just dreaming. You're
Mm-hmm.
going one thing to the next, and it's kind of pie in the sky. And to really connect it to where, I'm really putting that to where it's a true strength. There has to be discipline and action in my life. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
someone that has all these dreams, all these hopes and ideas, and they're just never happening, you just feel like you're just constantly stuck, I would ask yourself, what am I doing that I don't need to do anymore? Like, what is inhibiting my momentum towards these God-given dreams and hopes and aspirations? What are these roadblocks that you're continually up against? And I've had to identify what those are for me. And so yeah, long answer, I
So
realize,
good.
but yeah, that's just how I would want to encourage our listeners.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's all amazing stuff. I love that. It's never too late. It's never too late to begin. It's never too late to pursue your dreams. And what's cool now about Jeff's story is he is helping people who are going through, similar things to what you went through. And I think about your business, and like, you're helping men in transition. You're helping men going through difficult times. You're providing jobs for them. You used that story, the pain, all of that now to help so many other people going through a similar thing. And a lot of times we think the things that discount us are actually the things that qualify us. You could have sat there and been like, man, because of this accident, because of this moment, I'm done. Instead, you worked hard. It was a long road back, but you took it. Now you're impacting people who are going through the similar situation. And now you're stepping into more of a coaching role and helping people with their story and unpack it and take action in their life. And so, guys, if you're listening to this, like, it is not too late. You can begin this dream of yours, the things that God has put in your heart, or the things that you feel like you're called to. It's never too late to do it. And we need people to step up and pursue their dreams and impact the people that we once were. The things that we think disqualify us actually qualify us. And man, I'm just proud of you for the work that you did and for the hard road back and for who you are. And man, just the impact you've had on my life and so many others to come because you took ownership of your life. You surrounded yourself with good people and you put in disciplines and habits and practices to kind of push your life forward. So, man, thank you so much for just your vulnerability and sharing your story. I know it's incredibly impactful for me. I'm sure it was for those listening today too. So anyway, Jeff, as a community, the community here on Intentional Man, how can we support you? What's going on in your life? Anything we can do to kind of support what you got going?
Absolutely. Well, like I mentioned, always dreaming, looking at transitioning largely from my role I have right now with our company, into more of a coaching space, into where I can just be walking alongside other men and encouraging them, helping them learn more about who they are and become a person of discipline and intention. And so stepping into that space more and more along with Maxwell Leadership and another organization out of Colorado that's just helping a lot of people become clear about, hey, how did you get here and where do you want to go and how are we going to get there? And so stepping into that work, we love coffee. We're looking at doing more of a formal launch of our company, Awaken Coffee, here soon. It's been a lot of home roasting, but I would say, hey, there's probably some fear to get over the hump with that, and we're ready. It's time for action. Yes, and just seeing how we can see a lot of clean water for a lot of folks come out from this coffee dream and concept, and so that's a little bit that's on the radar for us. But awesome. Just want to mention, we are all people that are facing fears daily, and it's really something that even in my life right now, I'm having to be so intentional about being aware of what am I up against? What wall do I keep coming up against? And for me, and I think for a lot of you, it's fear. It's fear of failure. Mm-hmm. It's fear of the unknown. It's how am I going to be received? What is this all gonna look like? And so, I just want our listeners to know, hey, with our fears, I look at 3 P's, that I want to leave you with. And so first P would be prayer. Okay. And just that, hey, we've got to acknowledge this and know that we can't go out that alone. And the second one is preparation. So much of my fears, if I look back in my story, have been because I didn't train, I didn't prepare, I didn't put in work for the dream to become a reality. So preparation. And the third P would be perseverance. We've got to keep moving past the discomfort, past the comfort that a lot of us are in our life, but we've got to keep pushing and we've got to persevere towards those dreams through the fear. So prayer, preparation, and perseverance. Let's move through fear together. Let's not be stuck. And man, I'm so excited for all of you listening on what's next for you.
Yeah, wow, that's really good. Man, that's awesome. Prayer, preparation, and perseverance. What a great way to end. Yeah, because we all bounce up into fear, and it's always going to be there. So what are you going to do with it? Are you going to let it dominate your life, or are you going to attack it? And that's the cool thing, man, is that you're attacking it, and those are 3 steps that you can really keep in mind, those P's right there, to go ahead and attack fear. So thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, and your vulnerability today, and just for your friendship, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, it's an honor to be with you, Jonathan. Anything you're doing, I'm in, man. So appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, man. Thank you for tuning in to the Intentional Man podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to support the show, please share it with others, post about it on social media, and leave a rating and review. If you are someone who is looking to take your life to the next level, accelerate your success, and live more intentionally, I would love to help. Shoot me a text at 970-430-6085, and we could schedule a time to meet to discuss your vision and your goals. Again, that is 970-430-6085. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, build a life that matters by living intentionally.